Hey there, guys. We've now got the early information for Master Machinist Abigail, or Master Machinist Abigail, however you properly say that name. So like I said in my news video, we're going to be taking a look at the unit, looking at the kit, and I'm going to give my early impressions on what I think of the unit. Now, a few disclaimers. First of all, most importantly, this is just my personal opinion. Don't take it as absolute fact. This is just how I feel about the units. Sometimes I get units wrong. I'm not perfect, but I'll give you what I think about the unit. Also, I will say that the game currently is in maintenance, and sometimes units can be adjusted in the middle of maintenance, and we might not be getting her exactly as she's shown right this second, but it's very rare for them to adjust a unit in the middle of maintenance. So this is probably going to be the way she'll be tomorrow when the unit comes out. But anyway, let's take a look at the kit. So first of all, we're going to look at her statistics, her stats. At a brief glance, it seems very similar to Paladin Cecil, which is good. Cecil has great stats, and she has the exact same spirit as him after pots. With pots, it'll be 625 baseline spirit, which is about as good as it gets for the current generation of units. That's very good. As far as HP, I think she has 100 less HP than Cecil's, but basically the exact same thing. So her stats are very good, and as far as defense, it's decent. It's fine. She's a magic tank first and foremost, but it's not low, so it's fine. So her stats are very, very good. And I will tell you, just as a brief overview, I did already look at her kit, and I have to say, I'm pretty impressed. I am pleasantly surprised at this unit at a first glance. I'm liking what I see. But yeah, her stats, very, very good. As far as her base resistances, also very good. She's got 40 or higher to every single resistance, and she is naturally immune to every single ailment that matters. Anything that removes control from your character, she is naturally immune to. The smaller statuses like blind or disease and all that, they can be annoying, but they're not critical. You can just, stick a ribbon on her or something if you want to make her immune to everything. But yeah, so really good stats, really good baseline resistances. As far as gear selection, she can equip every single piece of armor in the game. As far as weapons, honestly speaking, you're always going to use her STMR staff. But if you don't have the STMR, she's got an okay selection. If, for some reason you want to go like dual wield or something, she can, offhand Zahn's STMR for more evasion and dual wield, stuff like that. Yeah, really good gear selection. She also has complete access to all the white and green magic in the game, which is not that big a deal, but sometimes you do have reasons to want to equip a mostly green magic. Green magic is the big one here, because sometimes you'll equip like Imperil or a resist buff to a different element and you don't want to use the Esper, stuff like that. So having green magic access is nice. White magic access, not as big a deal, but she has it. And as far as the kit, we'll just go over the skills, each one at a time real quick. So she's got this enemy data analysis, which is a Libra, which is cool and all, but, I can see how sometimes in the future this will be a little bit irritating when the Libra window pops up, because you're really going to use this for the perfect dispel. It is a perfect dispel single target, and you can just close the Libra window. It's not that big a deal, but it would have been kind of nice if the Libra thing was on a different skill that you didn't want to use for other reasons. But it's fine. It's great. Perfect dispel. That's a wonderful tool to have on a 5-turn cooldown, available on turn 1. Also, most of her skills fill the morale gauge by 200 per cast, and she does have triple cast in her kit. So most of the time, if you just want to spam morale, you can do 600 morale per turn in addition to all the other morale. We'll get to that in a minute, but she also auto-cast a bunch of morale as well, which is pretty good. Yeah, so she has a perfect dispel, and we're going to skip a little bit down here to another perfect dispel. So this is a different perfect dispel, and this is an AoE version to all enemies. So she has 2 different sources of perfect dispel, one of them on a 5-turn and one on a 6-turn cooldown. This one is also a Fire Imperil and a Fire Resist. She does have Fire Resist on demand in her kit, so this is not that big a deal, but this is her only Fire Imperil. So, if you are using her as your fire and peril unit, and the boss is curing his own debuffs, it can be a little bit awkward, but she's first and foremost a tank, and it is nice that she does have a 130 Imperil in her kit, which is pretty good. So yeah, 2 different sources of Perfect Dispel, single target and AoE. She's also got 2 different chain families, and again, she can triple cast. Absolute Mirror of Equity and Bolting Strike. It's really nice that she has Mirror of Equity, because as I've mentioned in the past, starting with Bart's, but as much as I love Bart's, we don't really care. But starting with Diosius and the units going forward, nearly everyone from JP has transitioned to Absolute Mirror of Equity frames. Their primary chaining skills are Absolute Mirror of Equity, and most of the LBs are triple Absolute Mirror of Equity. So having someone to support chain that is very, very good, because we don't have a source of external Mirror of Equity the way we have, like, Blue Wave or the Extreme Nova cards, that kind of stuff. So this is good. Now, a small downside is these are magical skills, meaning they cannot be imbued. So if the boss either absorbs or just resists to the point where you're unable to imperil to vulnerability, she can't support chain. So like if the boss has 300 light magic resist, you couldn't support chain with Absolute Mirror of Equity. Most bosses aren't that resistant, and most don't absorb these days, but it is something to keep in mind. And as far as the damage, irrelevant. She's not going to deal damage. It's just a support chain. She has Drone Decoy, which is a 2-turn provoke and 2-turn mitigation. Normally, I would say this is too low. It's too low of a duration, but the provoke part is not that big a deal, because we all go passive provoke these days. And then the mitigation, because we're going to get to her LBs later, most of the mitigation is going to be coming from her limit burst. So this is not that big a deal. I guess it's like an emergency backup just in case you get dispelled and her LB is not ready. So it's there, but she's not really going to use this almost ever. She's got these 2 skills, Anti-Magic and Anti-Physical Mechanism. These are her breaks. So she has 87% AoE break to everything on demand. Magic and Spirit on this one, attack and defense on this one. They also buff Spirit and defense, which is, neat, I guess. And it gives racial mitigation to the 4 races that she's favored for by 30%. Well, she has more in her LB. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, so this is very, very nice. The attack and magic break is pretty standard for tanks these days. Ash has it, Cecil has it, etc. The good tanks already have that. But the fact that she can break defense and spirit as well by 87 is pretty nice. Obviously, it's not as good as a 90 break, so you're still going to want like a 90 breaker, especially for like Dark Visions and all. But in Clash of Wills, honestly speaking, 87 is more than enough, because Clash of Wills has such extremely high passive stats. So we don't really care that the breaks aren't like 90% in Clash of Wills. She can absolutely be your only breaker in Clash of Wills, and you would be fine. So that's amazing. Her cover is basically the same as Cecil's, and the same as, Ash's and all the modern tanks. It's some 230 stat buffs for the party, 50 general, 50 magic mitigation, 100% chance to cover with 70 to 85. Her cover mitigation is actually slightly better than Cecil's. Cecil's is 65 to 80. Hers is 70 to 85. So it's actually slightly better, slightly bulkier than Cecil. So they are power creeping Cecil a little bit here, which is a little bit sad just because I love Cecil. But I mean, I'm kind of glad because she's a newer unit. And I've said before, I feel like newer units should always be, at the very least, a little bit better than the previous unit. You don't have to like do a huge power spike, but if a unit comes out 3 months later, they should definitely be slightly better than the previous unit. And she is definitely slightly better than Cecil. Definitely. She has triple cast for all her skills, including her magic. We're going to get to that later. We talked about this one. And here's her light in peril and resist. She does not have light resist on demand. Keep that in mind. And it's also technically not full uptime. It's a 5-turn up, 1 turn down. So she cannot be your full duration light resistor. It's only 1 turn of downtime, but if it gets dispelled, she has no way to reapply it. So that's a little bit of a setback, but worst case scenario, buff it with somebody else. And here is her Omni cover. We saw this in the news. It's very standard for the modern tanks. You know, Cecil has the exact same one. 100 chance, 75 cover mitigation, 90 general mitigation for herself. But as we mentioned already, hers is 4 turn, Cecil's is 5 turn. So it's just straight up superior to Cecil's Omni cover. Now, that being said, Cecil's Omni cover does fill 30 LB gauge for the party as well, and I've used that quite often, honestly, just for the LB fill, and hers doesn't have that, so maybe it's not strictly superior, but as far as cooldown, it is better. And she has this. We saw this in the news as well. Didn't really know what it does. Now we do. Contingency Plan Phase 1. So this is a really nice skill. So you cast it, and then it auto-casts for the next 2 turns. So for one action, over the course of 3 turns, you're getting 500, 1,000, and 1,000. So 2,500 morale gain. You're getting 2 stack of Mirage. That's actually only once. That will not auto-cast. So just 2 stack of Mirage. And then this barrier will auto-cast each turn. So it starts off, assuming you're at max morale, it'll be 20,000 for the party, 50,000 for the caster. Same thing on the next turn. And then the final turn is 30,000 for the party, 100,000 point barrier for the caster, which is extreme. Now that's at max morale, of course. If you're not at max morale, it'll be weaker. But that is a really, really big barrier, which makes me a little nervous for Clash of Wills, especially for going for, like, you know, the budget reclears that are not going to use the brand new unit. Like, is Clash of Wills balanced around a 100,000 point barrier? We'll have to see that tomorrow. It also heals the caster to 100%, so to Abigail only. And yeah, so this is a really nice skill. So 2,500 morale for one action is really good. That's really good. And then she has a Magnus. Thankfully, this is the only thing in her kit locked behind a Magnus. And this is what I was talking about in a previous video. This is the kind of thing I am totally fine with being on a Magnus one-time use. Things like killers and all that we had on previous units like Lilith and Ayaka and Cleom, those have no business being on a Magnus skill. But elemental absorption is incredibly powerful, and that is totally fine to be a one-time per fight. So this is her fire absorption. It also buffs the party by 400% to defenses, break immunity, stop and charm immunity, etc. And then it imperils the unit herself because she's absorbing fire. So that's actually a good thing. It'll give you more healing. Yeah, so that's her fire absorption. Pretty cool. I would not be surprised if this is going to play a big part in the Clash of Wills, but we'll have to see that soon. Let's go over the rest of her active skills. So these are her magic skills. These are also included in her multicast, so she's got even more support in her kit. Now, keep in mind, these are magic skills, and she is not immune to not immune to silence naturally. So if you get silenced, you can't use these skills. But that said, you know, just wear immunity or buff immunity, because we're going to skip down to Veil. She can buff immunity for the entire party for 5 turns, 2 statuses. Not to breaks, though. That is one thing I'm noticing lacking in her kit, is she doesn't have a way to make you break immune other than the Magnus. So the Magnus has 5 turns of break immunity. Other than that, she cannot make you break immune. So she's not completely replacing your support unit, like entirely. Or if you want to, just give her the Pause of Prosperity. That'll give her a break immunity buff, and then she can be your break immunity unit. But anyway, so Bar for Aja, this is just the classic, Bar for Aja, 200 fire resist, the 50 to all the mitts, and then 10 LB per turn. So if you really wanted to, you could triple cast this and fill 30 LB, every turn for the whole party. If you want to just, strictly focus completely on LB fill, it's an option, or you can mix and match. She has Bubble, so a 12,000 point barrier to one target. On demand, so she can always give herself a 12,000 point barrier, or give it to Sky or Olive, etc. One of your squishy units, help them survive a threshold if her barrier cooldown thing is not available. Maybe it's on turn 4 and you use this on turn 1. She has Bubble, which is nice. Curaga, which is the typical heal. Now Curaga is like not as good as Curaja, obviously. But honestly speaking, units these days just don't get Curasia anymore because Curasia is, let's just be honest here, a little overpowered. It heals for like over 100,000 healing. No one in the game gets that anymore. The last unit to get Curasia was Kresnik on Global. The last JP unit to get it was like a 7-star. Like it's basically been retired. So Curaga is what most units have these days, and it's fine. Same thing as Cecil. Cecil has Curaga, and with High Spirit, this is going to heal for between 11 to 20,000, depending on your spirit, depending on the gear you wear. You can wear modifier boost for it, like Lena's TMR, if you really want to get like the maximum healing out of this. Tome of Lakshmi will boost it as well. But whatever, it's going to heal for a minimum of 10,000, up to 20 to 25,000, depending on how much you want to make a cure. She has Shell plus 3, which is the good one. That's 75 on-demand magic mitigation, plus the big spirit buff, and then the general mitigation buff. Only plus 2 Protectka, so that's only a 50% physical mitigation, which is fine. You know, obviously it would have been nice to have 75 on that one as well, but she is primarily a physical tank, so I'm not really going to fault her. I am happy that she has that at all, because units like Cecil, etc., they don't have Protectka, period. At least I don't think he does. I could be lying here. No, I'm pretty sure Cecil doesn't have Protectka, but I'd have to double check. I'm not going to right now. But yeah, it's really good that she has that. And then Inferega. This is nice. Now, you know, this is me nitpicking. I would have liked for her to have Infereja, the same one as Ash, because Ash can do a 45% amplify for the party. Hers is only 35. But still, it's fine. She's got so much going on. This is still a really nice addition. So she can be your Imbue and your small amplify and your imperil unit. So she has like almost the entire support kit for fire. Pretty nice. The amplify is pretty low, but 35, it's not bad or anything. It's just not, you know, as good as we've got elsewhere. And then her LB and SLB. So they're basically the same thing. It's just the SLB is better. So the LB is 20% to all weapon imperil, and then 80% general and magic mitigation. So as we kind of predicted, she is basically magical Runda, just way better. And then the SLB is 30% omni weapon imperil. That's real nice. We were kind of talking on the news video, is it going to be like 20, 30, 40? Obviously it's not 40, but 30 is still pretty good. Now, as far as the weapon imperil, it is only for one turn. Now, keep in mind, though, the way debuffs work in the game, one turn is actually 2 turns. I know it's very confusing, but it says 1 turn, but it's really 2 turns. It's 2 player turns. It's 1 enemy turn, 2 player turns. So if you, for example, SLB on turn 3, the boss will have all these weapon imperils on turn 3, and it'll still be there on turn 4. So it's really 2 turns. That said, she cannot maintain this, even at EX3, because it'll be 2 turns up, 1 turn down. But it's still pretty good. And, like, you know, if you really wanted to, you could fill her LB and drop to 20%, but we're not really using her for weapon imperil. It's just a nice bonus. The mitigations go to 85% on the SLB, just like Runda. I am so happy about that. And then she also, on the SLB only, this is not on the LB, only the SLB, she gets 60% magical only, so 60% magical mitigation to her 4 races, beast, aquatic, human, and insect, to all allies. Now, to maintain the good mitigations, she has to be EX3. EX3 is the only way to keep this up with full uptime. Now, you can drop down to the slightly lowers and then the 30% racial mitigations up here. So it's not like you're completely naked without EX3, but this is a unit that EX3 will certainly be a higher quality of life than EX2 or 1, but EX2 should be, you know, okay. Now, as far as her passives, we're going to go over those real quick. Her passives are really, really good as well, like really good. So we're going to assume EX3. So EX3, she's got 1,500 flat spirit. That's actually higher than Cecil. Cecil only has 1,250, so she's going to have more bulk than Cecil. Defense as well. Cecil has no flat defense, so yeah, she's definitely going to be very, very bulky. 1,000 flat HP, but keep in mind this is flat. This does not scale. But As far as passive stats, she has 300% to all the stats that matter, including MP, and then an extra 50 on Spirit. And if you remember, her STMR staff has 100% HP on it, and then her staff has 100% double hand. So she, with her STMR, she is completely maxed out on percentage HP, on Spirit double hand, right here, 300 Spirit double hand. She's completely maxed out on that. She's at 350 Spirit with an item world on your staff. She can be maxed on that as well. So all you're missing is 100% to defense, assuming that even matters. If you're a pure magic tank, you're not even going to hit with physical, but it depends on the fight. Sometimes you want both. But yeah, her passives are very good. I guess technically not as good as Cecil, because Cecil is literally 400 to everything, but in reality, she kind of is too. The only one she's not going to be capped on with her STMR is defense, and that's very easy to cap off. A vision card plus maybe an item world roll or something, and you're good to go. She has 50 physical evade and 50 magic evade. Great. Cecil has no evasion, so she's, like I said, just an upgrade to Cecil. She auto-cast scout drones at the start of the battle. That is, the classic fill the LB. She auto-cast the fire amplify. The fire resist 200%, and then she auto magic covers. Now this, I'm so happy about this. It's only for one turn, and I'm glad at that. I don't like units that auto cover for like 5 turns, like Chow, etc., because I might not want them covering on turn 3. If I do, then I'll cast cover. Let me cast it myself. Don't, take that decision out of my hands. But one turn is good. It's fine. It's nice. It also allows her to use her LB on turn 1 and still be covering the party. So it's just this is good, very good. Now, Cecil's is Omni cover preemptive. Cecil will Omni cover everything, even fixed attacks during the ambush. She will not. Hers is only for magic, which is fine. Cecil is literally the only Omni cover preemptive, so I guess he does still have his niche, but it's really good. But that is only at EX2. Keep that in mind. So you have to be EX2 to get that. EX1 or 0, you will not have that. At EX3, you get Smokescreen Machine every turn. This is unfortunately, the auto-cast blind every turn, but it also fills morale every turn. So that's an extra 200 morale per turn at EX3, which is pretty nice. The other passives decrease MPUs by 50%, which is really nice because if you're spamming Barforagia, it costs 500 MP. Well, it's only going to cost 250 for her. Or if you equip something like 3 stars or something like that, it'll cost, it makes it easier to gear for the maximum MP reduction. She is naturally immune to Stop and Charm, and if you remember, she's also immune to all the really serious status effects. So she's basically immune to everything, same as Cecil. Cecil is too, but yeah, that's really good. She recovers a lot of MP per turn, which is really nice. And remember, she's got 300 passive MP, so she's going to have a really big MP pool. So she basically has infinite mana, which is awesome. She has a natural LB fill rate of 200% just by default. She has triple guts, and this is the critical part. Triple guts with a 5% threshold, but a 6% HP lock. This is the same thing as Chow, and the reason this is such a big deal, that means she can guts 4 times in the same turn. 3 times naturally, plus 1 more if you give her an item source. For example, Queen's STMR, Vanille's STMR, etc. That'll be 4 guts that can activate in the exact same turn. So it would take 5 lethal hits to kill her in a turn. That is so good. That is why I love, one of the reasons I loved Chow is because Chow could eat a bunch of lethal attacks in the same turn and still not die because he had multi guts with a higher threshold or higher lock than the threshold. That means it can activate multiple times in the same turn. Excellent, excellent, excellent. And she also has 75 auto provoke, which is nice. If you don't want her to be a passive provoke, she doesn't have to be. But if you do want her and you don't have the die item, or you want to get the die item to someone else, it's very easy to cap her off. A single Moogle charm, or something like the event Riku's, no, not event, the Albed Girl Riku's TMR is 30% provoke in the materia slot. So one of those, and you're maxed out. That's real nice. And then, I guess, decrease in counter rate. Explorations are not really a thing these days, but if you're going to farm Rat Tails in the Baymet Island for another Dragon Killer Plus, take her along and she'll make it less of a headache. And she also auto-casts just by default, no matter what your EX level, tactical concealment every turn. This fills 10 LB gauge to the party every single turn for free. And then it also auto breaks all enemies by 80% every turn, which is 99% of the times wonderful. But every now and then we do get one of those bosses like, was it the Ginger Buff Man or the one before that? One of the recent bosses, I think it was the Ginger Buff Man, that gets real mad if you break them. So every now and then, this is going to be a huge problem. But most of the time, this is awesome. Most of the time. Because it's every single turn. Usually, this is only like at the start of the battle. This is every single turn. It's really a big deal, because if a boss, for example, cures their breaks, and you just don't have the action efficiency to re-break that turn without really messing up your strategy, she'll auto-apply 80%, which is nice. Real nice. That's the whole kit. Now, real quickly, we'll talk about that TMR. Let's see. This also, while she's wearing this, will every single turn give her a barrier at max morale, 11,000 point barrier for free every single turn to her. It also AoE heals the party by 5%, and AoE fills morale by 100. So, assuming you're at EX3 with her TMR equipped, you're getting 100 there, you're getting 200 here, so 300 morale every single turn auto-casted. You're also getting up to 600 a turn from this, so that's 900 morale per turn, basically for free. And then on top of that, you can be getting every 5 turns an extra boost of 2,500 additional morale. So it's still not as good as Kresnik. Kresnik does fill more turn by turn, but still, this is close to like the second place. I think Sylvie with her Magnus might fill more short term, but over long term, I think she might be the second best morale filler. I'm not entirely sure. So, yeah, as you can probably summarize from everything I've been saying, I am happy about this unit. I very much like her. I will absolutely be doing pulls for her after this game comes up. Because I plan to live stream Clash of Wills, I will probably record my polls and then go immediately into live streaming Clash of Wills, meaning I won't actually upload the poll video right away, but the poll video will be there probably sometime Thursday evening, or I guess when I finish Clash of Wills and I have time, because really it just takes time to upload the video and get it processed and all that. But yeah. So final verdict, I think she's very good, and I'm not entirely sure if it's because Gumi heard our feedback that the past few months of units have been underwhelming, and they decided to either buff her or redesign her or make her better, or maybe she was always intended to be good. Whatever the case, I don't care. All I care about is I am happy that she is good, and she seems to be a very, very solid magical tank. Now, as far as like dark visions and all, probably doesn't have any use. She's really going to be just for trials and Clash of Wills, because she doesn't really do hardly anything for your offense. I know she does have 87 breaks and the weapon in peril and a little bit of fire support. I mean, it's a good fire support, but it's not like the best fire support. So, I mean, she has all that, and she might be worth bringing to like a firefight in dark visions, but for the most part, she's a unit for trials and for Clash of Wills. But she looks very good for Clash of Wills, and especially for trials. If you watch my JP videos, you've seen me do the Grace of Element trials and then the Evil Princess trial, and those were pretty freaking hard. And they really need a good tank. And She's good. The only thing I wish, is if she had that Cecil's field. If she had Cecil's field on top of everything else, my God, she would bury Cecil. We'd never see him again. But Cecil does still have the field, and the field is really good sometimes, depending on the fight. So Cecil might still see use, but honestly speaking, most of the time, I feel like this girl has power crept Cecil. And that's fine. You know, as much as I love Cecil, I'm happy we have a good unit. Anyway, there's my thoughts on the unit. That's half an hour of me talking about Abigail. Final result, she seems really good. I will see you guys for Clash of Wills tomorrow, as well as some polls. Later.